Hi everyone, this is Lynn and today I'm back with some crafty inspiration. I'm using the Pixie Perfect stamp set and the Celebrate Slimline Tag for today. I'm going to do some no-line coloring, but only on one image. This ladybug is my favorite image from the whole Pixie Perfect stamp set. It's so adorable. So I stamped this one out using Ink on 3 Fadeout no-line coloring detail ink onto Transotype Perfect coloring paper. And before I'm starting with my Copic markers, I'm first adding the details using my Micron Fineliner on top of this ladybug. And now I'm going to do the coloring. Now for the no-line coloring, it's important to take your time and just try to make it a really relaxing moment. I have sped this video up like a zillion times, so definitely this took me way longer than what you can see here, but I think it's having a lot of detail and I really like how it ended up. Now when I'm doing no-line coloring and I'm not an expert in it, currently I try to find some simple images. Simple, I mean not too tiny details. If you have larger areas, that's always handy, then you can really play with shadows to get some depth in your images. And this one is a tiny image, but still the surfaces are big enough. You can do a lot with it. So I'm using some warm grays today, and actually the whole ladybug will be in warm grays except for the purple that I will include in the back of this ladybug. When I'm doing no-line coloring, I usually first trace my lines using my darkest color or the color that I want there. Now with this tiny image, I could just add the darkest shadow everywhere. But sometimes if you have larger surfaces like the head that I already colored in, there I partially did the edge and then I build up the rest of the edge with the specific color that I want to use. Now, it's really important to take your time. Sometimes with no-line coloring, if you rush, of course some lines will get blurry and it will be difficult for you to color everything in. So that's why I always work in tiny areas. This is a tiny image, so that's handy already, but definitely if you have bigger images. I also often need to go back to the areas where I thought that I was ready, just to add some more depth and dimension. When you start on the other part, sometimes you accidentally add more shadows than on the previous part, and then just to balance everything out, you sometimes need to go back and forth. Or if you need some darker colors at a certain area because the area next to it is also dark and there should be a difference, then that's also sometimes the reason why I need to go back and forth. Now onto the dots. Of course, those are black. In Belgium, I don't know how that is in the rest of the world, but we most often have the ladybugs with the red and then the black dots. But for this card and the galaxy that I'm going to make, I really needed something to fit with that, so I went for purples. And we are making cards. I have never seen a purple ladybug, but we don't always have to go for the realistic color combination. So I'm going over it a second time. On this paper, I truly think that it adds more when you go over it 2 times. And then this one is finished, so I will just fussy cut it out and start on my background. So this Celebrating Slimline Tag came out last week, but I didn't feature it, so perfect for today. I have cut it out of the same paper, perfect coloring paper, and then also out of my paper that I use for my card bases. That's a bit heavier. And I did that twice out of that because I'm going to make a shaped card today. And therefore I will need to create my own card base with this shape. So for the galaxy background, I'm going to reserve that white border. You don't need to do that, but I really prefer doing that when I have stitch details or other details on the edges. I prefer keeping it white. So I'm just using my purple tape, covering that edge, and then I'm starting with my distress inks. So galaxies, it's a bit tricky. It doesn't always work out, and you will only know it in the end if it did or not. So that's sometimes a bit daunting, and that's also one of my reasons why I don't always make galaxies. But lately I have had a few that worked out fine, so I'm trying to give it a go more. And yeah, so for this one I tried to find colors that matched with the purple ID of the ladybug, and I'm just adding them first on my white die cut piece, and then I start adding blues and later on black to really darken this galaxy background. I also go over all the colors that I just added, and sometimes you will realize that certain colors didn't really work. Like if I would do this again, this background, I would avoid using the spiced marmalade. I didn't like it, but I will cover it up later on. So now I'm just making sure that I have a dark background. Sometimes this really takes a while, like in this case, sometimes it goes really quickly, but you just keep adding layers and layers. Now in between all the blues, I often go back with my lighter colors that I added first, just to give it a bit more, also just to let them show up again, because they are mostly covered by all the blues, all the blacks later on. So yeah, so I do that, I darken it up. This is also how I covered all the orange parts, and I actually ended up with only the picked raspberry, festive berries, and fossilized amber. And now a galaxy, it always has like an amazing effect when you add black to the edges. So the black soot is going on there. I must admit this panel is quite small because it's made for as a slimline tag, but then again it's smaller than a slimline card, so quite a lot got covered up with the black, but I'm just going over with those bright colors again, and that's really how you make them pop. If you have a moon or stars, you can also create a really light area to go just behind those images, and then it even strikes you more. But in this case I didn't have that. I just have the ladybug that I want to add, that is sort of looking to the galaxy sky. So it's a quite dark galaxy, but then again the pink and the reds really stand out still, so that's why I like it. And then the most important part of the galaxy is just splatter it all the way. I am using Winsor and Newton Designer Gouache. This is permanent white. The trick behind having a really stark white splatters is really not adding too much water. If you add too much water, your gouache will get so diluted that it will actually dry and take over the colors of your background, which is not the idea. So really just add 1 drop of water, mix it, check whether you can splatter. If you can splatter, then it's perfect. If you cannot do that, just add 1 drop again and just build up like that, so that you avoid having too much water in it. So now I am removing my purple tape, and as you can see, those white splatters really brighten up that background way more than in the beginning. In the beginning it was really dark, and now it's still dark, but with all those stars that you sort of have created with your splatters, it really gives a lot to the background. So in this Celebrate Slimline Tag die, there is also this amazing Celebrate, and I'm going to die cut it from this tag. So I'm trying to line it up in the middle because I'm going to keep everything together and place it again back into this galaxy. If you create a galaxy and it worked out and you're happy with the end result, then it's always gorgeous if you can just keep that galaxy completed. All that effort, it's a shame to just tuck it away behind something else. So I'm now adding some layers behind the Celebrate to make it stand out a bit more, and the recipient of this card will really see it really well in person. It's not always handy to catch in a photo, but in person it really is there, and it's bright and it's big and bold. So now onto adhering my galaxy onto my card base panels. I'm first adding the tag General, and then I will be inlaying the Celebrate. Also, in this case, it's really important to keep all the inside pieces, as you can see in my little tray here. I only save the galaxy pieces because I only want Celebrate to be really out there, and I didn't double up these insert, of course, because the tag as well isn't doubled up. So I'm just making sure that I am puzzling everything back into place with some liquid glue, with an embellishment wand, with whatever you have. And that is the Celebrate. I try to show you here by tilting it towards the light, and it's really there, but now it's already hard to see again. But the recipient will not have difficulties with this. So the ladybug is going to be there on the right bottom corner. I'm just adding a bit of the thin foam squares from Scrapbook Adhesives because it's sort of the same height as the two extra layers behind the Celebrate. And I am making sure that it is on there. I will need to wiggle it a bit and replace my adhesive on some parts to make sure that the adhesive is on the panel and not hanging over it. And I don't mind that the ladybug isn't completely on there, because this card is smaller than the slimline that you are used of, so it's perfectly fine to go through mailing. It will not give any issues. So I'm just making sure that it's really secured on there. Also the thinner areas. And once I'm happy with that, I can continue with my card base. So here, to get those tiny slivers underneath there, I'm using just my craft knife. You can also use some tweezers or whatever small things you have to help you. And now onto this other piece that I have die cut. I am scoring it, and I first scored it a bit too short in my opinion. So I am scoring it a bit further, I think 1 inch and 1/8 of an inch. And then I added some Scor Tape. That's a tape that I really trust. It's so secure when you're using Scor Tape. So for these things, I'm always going to that. I'm making sure that I'm covering it as much as possible. And then I will just make sure that I'm lining it up perfectly with my galaxy part. And then that's stuck on there. So this will mean that this card can stand up. There is also enough space to write on because it's a slimline tag, it's a big one. But something that you can also do, and I'm showing it here, and I also took pictures with it, is just take some yarn or whatever you have on hand and put it through that sliver, of course. And now actually the recipient will be able to put it just on the cupboard, but also he or she can just hang it somewhere. So that's really handy. I think there are 2 options to keep it. And here you can see that Celebrate, it's definitely there, but you just need to be able to see it up close. And it's standing up. So that is my card for today. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that I could inspire you to get crafting with your new supplies. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I will be back soon with some new inspiration. Bye!